Ladies and gentlemen, let me hit you with the truth right between the eyes. Every single day, we're told that what we eat determines how long we live, how strong we feel, and how healthy we stay. But what if I told you there's only tiny little nut that could silently sabotage your health, drain your energy, and literally cut years off your life? That's right. Something most people snack on without a second thought could be wrecking your body from the inside out. Today, I'm not here to sugarcoat it. I'm here to pull back the curtain and tell you exactly why you need to NEVR eat this nut if you want to live longer, stronger, and healthier than ever before. The hidden toxin inside this nut is the kind of thing that sounds like a myth at first glance. People eat nuts all the time, and they've been marketed for decades as little powerhouses of protein, healthy fats, and energy. You've heard it. Grab a handful of nuts for a healthy snack, sprinkle them on your salad, toss them into your smoothies. But what happens when one of those nuts carries something dangerous, something that quietly undermines your health every single time you eat it? That's the reality here. We're not talking about calories, carbs, or fat grams. We're talking about a toxin that literally alters what's happening in your body on a cellular level. It's not about gaining weight. It's about damaging your health in ways you can't see until it's too late. Inside this nut lies a naturally occurring compound that your body treats like an invader. Instead of nourishing you, it poisons you slowly. Your immune system senses it, but the damage happens so subtly you don't connect the dots. Think about it, you eat a handful, you feel fine, and so you eat more the next day. But over time, this toxin builds up. It's like a silent drip of poison into your system. You don't feel it immediately, but beneath the surface, your organs are working overtime to protect you, your cells are under attack, and your defenses are weakening day by day. Science has shown that these compounds are linked to oxidative stress. That's just a fancy way of saying your cells are rusting from the inside out. Imagine leaving metal out in the rain. It corrodes. That's what's happening to your body when you consistently consume this nut. The toxin creates free radicals, those unstable molecules that go around your body looking to damage healthy cells. And when your cells are damaged, you age faster, you lose energy, and your risk of disease skyrockets. This isn't hype, it's biochemistry. The scariest part is that most people have no idea. They snack on these nuts at parties, buy them by the bag in grocery stores, and give them to their kids thinking they're doing something good. You're told it's natural, so it must be safe. But cyanide is natural. Arsenic is natural. Just because something grows from the ground doesn't mean it's good for you. This nut carries compounds that your liver has to process like a toxin, and when your liver is overwhelmed, every other system in your body pays the price. Now, let's talk about inflammation. This hidden toxin is a trigger for chronic, low grade inflammation, the kind you don't notice right away. You're not breaking out in hives, you're not collapsing on the floor, but your body is fighting a war you don't see. That inflammation drives everything from joint pain to digestive issues to cardiovascular disease. It makes your arteries less flexible, your heart less efficient, and your immune system less reliable. This nut doesn't just shorten your life, it chips away at the quality of every single day you live. The truth is, food is either medicine or poison, and this nut leans heavily toward poison. You don't feel energized after eating it, you feel sluggish, bloated, maybe even anxious without realizing why. Your body is screaming for relief, but you're not hearing it because the marketing around this nut tells you it's a superfood. The reality is very different. The hidden toxin inside doesn't just pass through your system, it lingers, it builds, and it sets the stage for long term damage you'll only recognize years later when it's too late to undo. How it silently inflames your body is the part of the story that most people never think about because inflammation is often invisible. You don't see it like a cut on your skin. You don't always feel it like a sore muscle, but it's happening deep inside you every time you consume this nut. This isn't the kind of swelling you get when you sprain an ankle. It's the quiet, chronic type that gnaws at your health without ever making a loud announcement. Doctors call it the silent killer. For a reason, because inflammation that goes unchecked can lead to heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and faster aging. The problem with this nut is that its compounds trigger your body's defense system in a way that never fully shuts off. Here's how it works. When you eat, your digestive system isn't just breaking down food, it's scanning for threats. Normally, real nutrients get absorbed, your body gets what it needs, and the process runs smoothly. But when this nut's hidden toxins and compounds hit your system, your body recognizes them as foreign. They don't belong. Your immune system jumps into action, sending out inflammatory signals designed to attack and neutralize the problem. That's a good thing if it happens once in a while. But when you snack on these nuts regularly, that immune response never fully ends. The result is a low grade fire burning inside you, invisible to the eye, but devastating to your long term health. Think of it like this: your immune system is an army. Its job is to defend you against real threats, viruses, bacteria, injuries. But when this nut enters the picture, your army is called into action unnecessarily. Day after day, meal after meal, your immune system is fighting a war that doesn't need to be fought. Soldiers get tired, resources get drained. And while your body is distracted dealing with the false alarms, it has fewer defenses available for the real dangers. This is why chronic inflammation is tied to autoimmune conditions where your body actually starts attacking itself. The physical effects of this nut induced inflammation are everywhere. Blood vessels become less flexible, which means your heart has to work harder to pump blood. Insulin, the hormone that regulates blood sugar, becomes less effective, paving the way for diabetes. Your brain, one of the most vulnerable organs to inflammation, starts to experience changes in memory, mood, and clarity. People often describe feeling foggy, anxious, or fatigued without realizing it's linked to what they're putting in their mouths. It doesn't happen after one serving, it's the accumulation that wears you down. And here's the most dangerous part: this inflammation doesn't cause immediate pain that sends you running to the doctor. Instead, it builds slowly over months and years. It's subtle. Maybe you notice a little extra stiffness in the morning. Maybe your energy dips in the afternoon. Maybe you're catching more colds than you used to. Most people chalk it up to aging or stress, but underneath it all, the body is being hijacked by inflammatory compounds triggered by this nut. That's how it stays hidden, because people don't connect the dots until the damage has already piled up. There's also the oxidative stress factor. When your body is inflamed, it produces free radicals, unstable molecules that damage your DNA and your cells. It's like microscopic shrapnel flying around inside you, injuring healthy tissue, accelerating the breakdown of joints, skin, and organs. Inflammation feeds oxidative stress, and oxidative stress feeds more inflammation. It becomes a vicious cycle, one that speeds up the aging process and makes you vulnerable to disease years before you should be. Your gut is one of the first battlegrounds where this silent inflammation takes hold. The compounds in this nut irritate the lining of your intestines, making them more permeable. That's called leaky gut, and it means toxins and undigested particles slip into your bloodstream where they absolutely do not belong. Once that happens, your immune system is on red alert all the time. You're essentially living in a state of emergency at the cellular level, even if you look fine on the outside. Inflammation doesn't stay in one place. Either it travels. If it starts in the gut, it can spread to the joints, the brain, the heart. That's why people who eat this nut regularly might notice joint discomfort, unexplained fatigue, or mood swings they can't explain. It's not random. It's the body's response to being under constant silent attack. The shocking link to shortened lifespan begins with the way this nut interacts with your body's most fundamental systems. Lifespan isn't just about how many candles you can fit on a cake. It's about the wear and tear your body experiences every single day, compounded over years. When you consistently expose yourself to something toxic, even in small amounts, the effects accumulate until they push you toward decline sooner than you ever expected. This nut carries compounds that accelerate that decline, not in obvious, dramatic ways, but in subtle processes that quietly shave years off your life without you noticing until it's far too late. One of the clearest connections between this nut and shortened lifespan is the burden it places on your cardiovascular system. Heart disease remains one of the leading causes of death worldwide, and inflammation is a major driver of it. The compounds in this nut irritate the inner lining of your blood vessels, creating micro injuries that your body rushes to repair. Each repair builds up scar like tissue and plaque, narrowing arteries and making them less flexible. Over time, blood flow becomes restricted, blood pressure rises, and your risk of heart attack or stroke increases dramatically. This isn't an overnight process, but it's a guaranteed one if the damage is allowed to continue unchecked. Another link to shorten lifespan is the way this nut interferes with metabolic health. Your body relies on balance, blood sugar levels that rise and fall in a healthy rhythm, hormones that regulate energy and appetite, and cells that respond properly to insulin. The toxin inside this nut disrupts those patterns, causing insulin resistance over time. Insulin resistance isn't just about diabetes, it's about a cascade of problems that include faster cellular aging, increased fat storage around organs, and a much higher risk of life shortening diseases. Every time your body struggles to manage glucose because of inflammation and oxidative stress, you take another step closer to conditions that rob years from your life. There's also a direct impact on DNA integrity. Every cell in your body contains DNA, the blueprint for life. Free radicals generated by the toxins in this nut cause damage to that blueprint, leading to mutations. When DNA is damaged, cells don't replicate properly, and the aging process accelerates. Damaged DNA is also a stepping stone to cancer, one of the most devastating ways lifespan gets cut short. Cancer cells thrive in environments of chronic inflammation, and this nut's compounds help create exactly that environment, setting the stage for disease to develop silently until it's advanced enough to threaten survival. Beyond physical disease, there's the effect on brain health, which directly ties into longevity. Neurological decline is one of the most feared outcomes of aging, and the inflammation triggered by this nut doesn't spare the brain. In fact, the brain is highly sensitive to oxidative stress. Toxins cross the blood-brain barrier and contribute to the formation of plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease, as well as the loss of neurons critical for memory and focus. A shortened lifespan isn't always about dying younger. Sometimes it's about losing your mind and independence years before your body gives out, leaving you with less quality of life and fewer meaningful years. Mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your cells, are also damaged by the hidden toxins. When mitochondria weaken, energy production drops, and fatigue becomes a daily battle. But it doesn't stop at fatigue. Damaged mitochondria speed up the overall aging of tissues, organs, and systems. Your body literally runs out of steam sooner than it should, cutting into the length of time you can live at full capacity. Scientists often call mitochondrial health the key to longevity, and this nut undermines it at the core. Then there's the compounding effect. One handful doesn't kill you, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because it doesn't cause immediate harm, people continue eating it, assuming there are no consequences. But every serving adds another brick to the wall of damage: more inflammation, more oxidative stress, more pressure on your heart, more wear on your cells. Over decades, those small choices translate into a dramatically shortened lifespan because your body has been living under assault without rest or recovery. It's death by 1,000 cuts, where the damage is invisible until the final blow arrives sooner than expected. Why most people ignore the warning signs is one of the biggest reasons this nut continues to be a silent threat, despite the science and the evidence pointing to the dangers. People are conditioned to trust labels, marketing, and cultural habits around food. If a package says natural, plant-based, or heart healthy, the average person doesn't dig deeper into what those claims really mean. This nut has been wrapped in that kind of messaging for years, promoted as part of a balanced diet, tossed into trail mixes, and even recommended by health magazines. That repeated reinforcement builds trust. So when subtle warning signs show up in the body, people rarely connect them back to what they're eating. The first warning signs are often so small they're brushed aside. A little bloating, a slight dip in energy, some stiffness in the joints. None of those feel like emergencies, so they get blamed on things like lack of sleep, stress at work, or just getting older. But the truth is that these are early signals from the body that something is wrong. Inflammation and toxin buildup don't announce themselves with fireworks, they whisper. And because most people are waiting for a loud, undeniable symptom before they change anything, those whispers get ignored until the damage is too advanced to reverse. Another reason people overlook the warning signs is normalization. If you feel a little sluggish every day, it becomes your normal. If your digestion is off every time you eat certain snacks, but it doesn't completely debilitate you, you adapt and stop questioning it. The body adjusts to discomfort, but that doesn't mean the discomfort is harmless. It means your body is tolerating damage in silence. This nut makes people feel a little off without causing immediate collapse. And that's exactly why it stays under the radar. Add to this the influence of social proof. When you see friends, coworkers, or even fitness influencers eating these nuts without hesitation, it reinforces the idea that they must be safe. Nobody wants to feel like they're overreacting to something that seems common and accepted. The psychology of following the crowd is strong, especially with food. People will say, everyone eats this, it can't be that bad. And then they dismiss their own symptoms rather than questioning the choice. The collective behavior drowns out individual red flags. Marketing is another powerful layer of distraction. Companies selling these nuts know exactly how to frame them. They highlight the protein, the fiber, the good fats, and they bury the fact that there are toxins and inflammatory compounds present. They push images of active lifestyles, happy families, and glowing health to create a mental association that overrides any discomfort people might feel after eating them. Clever branding convinces people that what they're experiencing is unrelated to the food, shifting the blame to other parts of their lifestyle instead. Cognitive dissonance plays a role too. That's the mental discomfort you feel when your actions don't line up with what you know. Someone might hear that this nut is harmful, but because they've been eating it for years and enjoy the taste, they dismiss the information to avoid changing their habits. It's easier to rationalize the warning signs than to give up something familiar. They'll say things like, everything causes cancer these days, or a little bit won't hurt me, as a way to justify continuing. This mindset blinds them to the very signals their body is giving. Another reason warning signs get overlooked is that modern medicine often treats symptoms in isolation. If you complain about joint pain, you get an anti inflammatory pill. If you feel tired, you're told to sleep more or reduce stress. Rarely does anyone connect the dots back to diet unless it's extreme. This fragmented approach means that even when people seek help, they don't get the full picture. The nut remains in their diet, the root cause continues unchecked, and the cycle of inflammation and toxin exposure persists. Finally, there's denial. People don't want to believe that something as small and ordinary as a nut could be cutting years off their life. It feels easier to believe that genetics, bad luck, or random chance are to blame for health issues than to face the fact that something they chose to eat every day is harming them. That denial allows the nut to remain a hidden saboteur, slipping past the body's alarms because the mind refuses to acknowledge them. Smarter, safer alternatives to fuel your body begin with shifting the mindset that health is about deprivation or giving things up. It's not about what you lose, it's about what you gain when you choose foods that actually work with your body instead of against it. The nut in question may be convenient, salty, crunchy, and satisfying in the moment, but the long term cost is far too high. The smarter approach is to look for foods that deliver the same sense of satisfaction and energy, but with compounds that strengthen your cells, calm inflammation, and extend your vitality rather than cutting it short. The key is to replace harm with nourishment, swap toxins for fuel, and never feel like you're missing out in the process. One of the safest swaps comes from nuts and seeds that don't carry the same hidden toxins. Almonds, walnuts, and pistachios are loaded with antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, and fiber that protect the heart and brain. They reduce inflammation instead of provoking it, and they give you steady energy rather than blood sugar crashes. Sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds are another powerhouse choice. They're high in magnesium, zinc, and vitamin E, nutrients that support immune health, protect your cells from oxidative stress, and balance hormone production. These are the kinds of foods that fuel you, not just fill you. If it's the crunch you crave, there are plenty of options that won't sabotage your health. Roasted chickpeas, edamame, and air pop popcorn provide that same satisfying bite while also delivering protein, fiber, and minerals that actually extend your life instead of cutting it short. Crunchy vegetables like carrots, celery, and cucumber with hummus or guacamole can give you texture, flavor, and satiety without slipping toxins into your system. The trick is to retrain your taste buds to associate crunch and satisfaction with foods that leave you feeling energized and light instead of bloated and sluggish. For people who reach for nuts because they want healthy fats, there are safer, smarter sources of those fats. Avocados provide monounsaturated fats that support heart health, balance cholesterol, and keep skin and joints supple. Olives and extra virgin olive oil deliver polyphenols that fight inflammation at its root, protecting blood vessels and brain function. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel are rich in omega 3s that directly counteract the oxidative stress and inflammation caused by harmful compounds. These foods don't just prevent disease, they actively push your biology toward longevity. Protein is another reason people turn to nuts, thinking they're getting a muscle building snack. But you can get cleaner, more effective protein from sources like lentils, beans, quinoa, and lean meats. Even plant based protein powders made from peas, hemp, or brown rice can provide a concentrated, toxin free source of the amino acids your body needs for repair and recovery. Pairing these proteins with whole grains and vegetables not only keeps your body strong, but also keeps your gut microbiome thriving, which is one of the biggest factors in long term health. Energy is another area where people think this nut is doing them a favor, but real energy comes from foods that fuel mitochondria instead of damaging them. Berries like blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries are rich in antioxidants that protect energy production at the cellular level. Dark leafy greens like spinach, kale, and arugula deliver iron, chlorophyll, and phytonutrients that improve oxygen delivery and fight fatigue. Whole grains like oats, brown rice, and quinoa give you slow burning carbohydrates that keep your energy steady throughout the day instead of spiking and crashing your blood sugar. Flavor is often what keeps people attached to harmful foods, so finding alternatives that light up the taste buds is essential. Herbs and spices like turmeric, cinnamon, garlic, and ginger are not only flavorful but anti inflammatory, reversing the very damage that this nut contributes to. Using roasted seeds with spices, mixing fruits with nut butters like almond or cashew, or creating your own trail mix with dried fruit and safe nuts can satisfy cravings while keeping you firmly in the zone of nourishment. The smarter path isn't about giving up pleasure, it's about redefining it. True pleasure comes from food that leaves you feeling clear, headed, energized, and alive long after the meal is over. When you choose foods that fuel your body, you're not just extending your lifespan, you're enhancing the quality of every day you live. Every choice is a deposit into your future health account, and safer alternatives exist in abundance for anyone willing to reach for them. The power of one choice to extend your life comes down to the understanding that every action you take with your health either pushes you closer to vitality or closer to decline. People often believe that their lifespan is locked in by genetics, that they are destined to live as long as their parents or grandparents did, but science proves otherwise. Genetics load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger, and food is one of the most powerful levers you can control. One single choice repeated day after day creates a ripple effect across your body, shaping your energy, your resilience, and ultimately the number of years you get to live with strength and clarity. Choosing to eliminate a food that harms you and replace it with one that heals you is a decision that compounds over time And it can literally mean the difference between years lost and years gained. Every time you eat, you're sending instructions to your body. You're telling it to either repair, rebuild, and protect, or you're telling it to inflame, degenerate, and weaken. That's the real story behind food. It isn't just calories or macros, it's information. When you choose not to put this toxic nut into your body, you're cutting off a stream of damaging instructions and replacing them with positive signals. You're giving your cells the environment they need to thrive instead of fight. That one choice may not feel powerful in the moment, but repeated over weeks, months, and years, it adds up to extended health span and lifespan. Longevity research shows that people who live the longest aren't necessarily those who eat perfectly or never make mistakes, but they are people who make consistent, better choices most of the time. They minimize toxins, reduce inflammation, and fuel themselves with foods that strengthen instead of weaken. Removing one dangerous habit from your diet and replacing it with a healthier one can tip the scales dramatically in your favor. One choice made consistently creates an entirely new trajectory for your health. It's easy to underestimate the compounding power of small changes. One cigarette won't destroy your lungs, but a pack a day for decades will. One toxic nut won't shorten your life overnight, but eating them habitually will shave off years without you realizing it. The same is true in reverse. One handful of antioxidant rich berries won't suddenly make you immortal, but consistently choosing foods like that strengthens your defenses, repairs damage, and slows the aging process. The power lies in repetition, and repetition comes from the single choice you make in the moment. This power of choice extends beyond just biology. It affects mindset. When you choose to cut out something harmful, you send yourself a message that your life matters, that your health matters, that your future matters. That decision becomes an identity shift, a reminder that you are in control rather than a victim of circumstance. People who believe they have power over their health outcomes tend to take more positive actions, which compounds the effect even further. One choice isn't just about food, it's about reclaiming agency over how you live and how long you live. Think about how this works in the context of aging. Most people resign themselves to the idea that after a certain age, they will slow down, weaken, and fade out. But studies of longevity hotspots around the world show that people in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s remain vibrant, active, and independent. The difference isn't luck, it's choice. It's the accumulation of decades of choosing foods and habits that extend life instead of shorten it. And while it may feel overwhelming to think about decades, it all begins with the single choice you make today in this moment to stop consuming something harmful and replace it with something that fuels your future. One choice can break a destructive cycle. If you've been snacking on the same toxic nut for years, cutting it out now interrupts that pattern of damage. The inflammation begins to calm. The oxidative stress reduces. Your body starts to repair. Over time, those repairs add up to restored vitality. And what seemed like a small decision becomes a massive turning point in your health story. The earlier you make that choice, the more years you protect. But it's never too late for the body to respond positively to better decisions.